Previous guest writes the first question. You have the envelope, sir. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. All righty. So the question is, what was your worst assignment? Why? And how did you handle it? That's a good question.
Narrowing it down to the hardest assignment.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of stories come into mind when I'm thinking about what is a worst assignment and what makes it the worst, right? And why. And then also how you handle it being, is it ultimately even the worst anymore? You know, depending on the learning experience. So
well, isn't that basically, though, just life when you think about it? What seems bad or the worst right now, you give it time, you give it some space, you give it the ability to look back on it and go, man, that actually turned out to be really good. I learned a lot from it or whatever.
Yeah, we're quick to blame some of the hardships in our life, whether it's assignments or parents or things that happen to you. And it's easy to try to blame some of those things for the weaknesses or those things that you have in trauma in the past. And then, but we fail to give credit to those situations that build upon our strengths. So thinking about this, I mean, with the military, if I use this as an assignment as, you know, being in uniform and in the military, I would say it would be a light attack helicopter squadron that I was a part of, HMLA 469, which was kind of going through some hardships in itself within the organization. They were the ones that were kind of attacked from the Battle of Bastion, the attack on Bastion, which they lost a bunch of people. So you have a returning squadron coming back from Afghanistan, already in that kind of turmoil of processing things, but it was still in this really high tempo, fast environment. A lot of those junior Marines at the time within that shop that I was a part of, that was their formative years. That was what really created who they were. And like anything with military, you spend a couple of years and you have a rotation. So you have different leadership that comes in. And as an aviation ordnance guy, you can be on any type of platform aircraft. So you might be really good and you've learned in the beginning of your career more of the tactical stuff, the stuff that's actually working on the aircraft for, you know, fixed wing aircraft, F-18s. And then all of a sudden you go to helicopters and now you're a staff sergeant. So your role from the person that's turning the wrench, loading the bombs, to now you are dealing with people in administrative as well as leading those teams can shift. And sometimes it takes an ego or a dying of an ego in order to understand, I don't know what I need to know. So when I came to this squadron after, recruiting duty, having the same sense, I've never been on that aircraft, brand new staff sergeant. I fell into a place that had the back office staff that were hiding. And I saw the effects of what that did to those junior Marines that were not only handling the issues that they had from a prior deployment, but they didn't have that mentorship that they needed to be real successful. So it was hard. And this was something that was throughout the whole squadron, not just within my shop or my division. So when I said, some of the worst assignments can turn out to be some of the best assignments, but it doesn't make it any easier. And fortunately, I was able to be on, night crew. I was able to identify quickly the leadership gaps and to be able to make those relationships with those Marines that were running the shop, even though there were 2 ranks below, really teach me how to do the job, how to be successful. And that really taught me, I think, what it is to be a leader, not only in my positional power, but the influence of what that can mean, because those corporals were the leaders of the shop. They were the ones running everything. And how I handled it was to rely on those guys to show that I cared. And ultimately, it took me to be strong enough as a staff sergeant to tell some of the gunnies and master sergeant and even the officer, like, look, here's the situation. You guys are hiding things that could cause significant harm to people if not addressed, because we're working with bombs and bullets and things that need to be replaced. And I'm going to rip this Band-Aid off if, we're going to get somebody fired or killed. But I had to do that in a way that wasn't destructive to all of the organization, in a way that was not trying to threaten anything, because really what it boiled down to was those leaders weren't confident in those abilities because they got to a level where you can kind of fake things for a while until you get to a certain level and you can't.
From a 30,000 foot view perspective, what was the benefit or what was the motivation for keeping things secret and not divulging everything to the crew? If you can talk about it. If you can't, it's, we'll leave it at that.
I think it was a division of the back office and the front office work. It was kind of weird because one of the main guys, and I'm not going to say names, but one of the main guys was, I thought he did things wrong, and it took a while for me to understand what was going on within the relationships of that back office. Because me as a staff sergeant at the time, I was in the middle of front office work and back office work. Whereas some of the back office gunnies, they didn't want to deal with some of that other stuff. And some of it wasn't about not knowing, but it was just a division of like whose responsibilities are what. And then when some of those guys left, they didn't take on that new gunny and really put him under the wing and set him up right. So when he's looking at that 30-foot, what do I need to do as this new gunny? He wasn't led correctly. So he thought, yeah, this is not, I'm going to do admin stuff. I'm going to count stuff. I'm going to do reports. But the importance is being there out on the line, working on the aircraft with the Marines. They need to see you out there. They need to know that they can trust you to understand what's going on, not just bark orders. When it came to some of the other things, when I would joke about this, it's like this, the squadron dysfunction. Like dysfunction happens within any organization, and it's not something that happens right away. It's not one significant action. It's a series of things that fester and continue to grow, and that culture becomes used to it, almost to a point where the resistance is there of anything else, new person that comes. If you either conform or you're looked at as a target or a threat, like, hey, don't, yeah, we messed up, but you messed up too.
Let's be honest. We're hard on our sunglasses, especially first responders and military members. They get dropped, scratched, left on the dash, or crushed in our gear bags. Frontline Optics gives you the same premium quality and eye protection without the high price tag. Sure, you can spend big money on the designer brands, but why should you? From polarized UV 400 lenses to anti-reflective and water-repellent coatings, every pair of Frontline Optics glasses is built to handle the demands of the job. And here's the best part. When life happens and they break, Frontline Optics has a no questions asked replacement program, even for prescription glasses. If that's not enough, Frontline Optics was founded by a firefighter, and a portion of every sale supports the First Responders Children's Foundation, helping the families of those who gave everything. If you're looking for sunglasses that look good, are built tough, and that come from a company that gives back, visit frontlineoptics.com and use the promo code TRANSITION10 to get 10% off your purchase. Frontline Optics, from a first responder for the front lines.
So the 33rd, I think at that view, it became so disorganized within the squadron that, we had barrels rupturing from not being replaced from pitted corrosion. You had people not doing right things on round counts on guns. So for me, I was like, once I started picking at what was going on, I started to find, hey, we have a problem here. And, it wasn't to a point till I had to down 7 aircraft before a flight at ITX. And I was happy about it, smiling. And they were like, why the hell are you smiling? And I'm like, well, I'm saving potential lives. Like we've had barrel ruptures and things, and we downed the aircraft. And at that point, one of the gunnies, brought all the troops together and said, look, our officer is going to find out this stuff's happening. We need to keep him out of our business. And at that point, I was just seeing red.
Bringing it back around, though, when we first started talking about whatever something negative or the worst assignment, but we also talked about the difference of perspective once you get away from it and there's a little bit of time. And looking back on it now today, on what do you have a different perspective on the whole picture that maybe because you were right in the middle of it at the time, you weren't able to see all the way out to the edges?
Yeah. That perfect example is just trying to understand, like you said, that 30,000 foot view. What was the perception of each leader that was acting in a certain way? And not only that, but more self-reflection of, well, I was the staff sergeant. I was the person that was 1 foot in each. So really, are their problems because of what I came into their problems, or is it my problem? But at the same time too, what you're addressing is I had that opportunity to fix it and to grow and to win over, the hearts and minds, I guess, of my junior Marines to be like, oh, now I have a staff sergeant finally that kind of understands it. And that made me a way better staff sergeant. That made me a way better Marine to understand it's not one person that causes dysfunction in an organization, but you can be that one person really to change the dysfunction as long as you can get the right people with you, to go against that resistance.
Well, at some point in time, somebody has to start trying to turn the tide. I get the fact that especially in a smaller unit, it's easy to get in there and the tide controls you, and you're kind of basically like grabbing for that life vest, so to speak. But at some point in time, if there is things that are not working, performing improperly, somebody's got to stand up and go, hey, I got to push this back this direction. Mm-hmm. And it's not going to be the popular decision sometimes.
Yeah, I think there was a gap there too. So, there wasn't that staff sergeant. But at that time, we had 10 Marines that are all really capable. Out of the 10, only one wanted to re-enlist. And that was a point to me where it was like, hey, there's something really wrong with not just how we do business, but what are we doing as leading these Marines, or even taking care of some of the issues that they had from the prior deployment, and ensuring if you're going to leave the service now, what's your plan, and where you're going to go.
You mentioned that you had come back, or you had come to that aviation unit after being in recruiting for a while. Prior to going to recruiting, had you been in aviation and you just returned to it, or was this your first time in aviation?
Yeah, so I could, if you want, I can go back to kind of the beginning.
Oh, we'll get there. I was just asking a generalities question.
I was in same job.
Okay.
Same job as, ordnance, doing guns and bombs and all that kind of stuff, except it was a little bit different. I was attached to a CASEVAC unit, so casualty evacuation stuff. So we were with the CH-40, 47s, or CH-46s. Army would know CH-47s, the Chinooks, the big double-roaded bladed, where they have like medical staff and they do kind of rescue missions and stuff like that. So
before we go any deeper into your career, let's go backwards, so to speak. You grew up, or you're born and raised in Minnesota, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Talk to me about what it's like growing up in Minnesota for you, and how big's your family, and are you generational? Are your parents and grandparents and everybody in Minnesota?
Yeah. So most of my family. So I grew up Minnesota, St. Paul, East Side St. Paul, which is, the capital of Minnesota. So, which comes with all the snow and the different season changes and stuff like that. Kind of big city. If you ever seen kind of 8 Mile or any kind of those kinds, it's usually dirty with the snow and snot and things like that. Kind of manufacturing goes on with 3M over there. I've got some of my family that were, 3M engineers on my dad's side. Military past, I'll kind of walk my dad's side. actually a different last name than I have. So my last name being Scoggins, I took my mother's maiden name, and I'll go into that in a second. But my dad's side is all Pritchett. So they're all, doctors, lawyers, very successful. My uncle served in Vietnam. He was a lawyer. When he got out, he actually is an immigration lawyer and has his own law firm now and everything. My other uncle, John, who was a very big person in my life, he was in the Navy in Vietnam as well, got out, didn't have a family or anything like that, but moved up to northern Minnesota and was an avid fisherman, did tours, hunting. So he was the Uncle John that all the other family members would come to and spend a week, go out on the ice fishing or go trolling out on, for northern pike or walleye and things like that. But we'd go every year up there, and he was just on a trailer, him and his dog and stuff like that. So it was kind of cool. So I've always loved the outdoors. I've always loved the thought of military. My dad wasn't in the military. My grandpa was. He was World War II. He worked on P-51 Mustangs and stuff. So everyone says that I look pretty much like him, and I could show you pictures at some other time. You're like, man, yeah, it is spitting image. My grandma was a nurse during World War II. They were both avid, very strong Catholic. So the religion was kind of brought to me in a young age. I mean, I joke about it a lot of times, making rosaries like a sweatshop with my grandma. So, but she taught me how to play cards and drink coffee and make rosaries. And she was awesome. So I grew up.
Now, these are all uncles, grandparents from your dad's side?
Yep.
Okay.
Then on my mom's side is, in a sense, very the opposite of, like, none of them graduated high school. My grandma, having 5 baby daddies kind of thing where, there's a large family, but from all different dads. My mom had a really rough upbringing too, because her real dad took off. And then the actual Scoggins man, where the name comes from, was a guy in the Navy that ended up raising 10 siblings, you know what I mean? And he was a younger guy and just a great man. But he ended up, from 2 years old to 13 years old was, my mother's dad, which was really honorable thing to do, to take on such a big task at such a young age. But he ended up passing away from a head-on collision with a semi. So, that trauma right there for my mom was probably pretty significant. And I'll talk about my mom's past, because it's something that I think really has made me who I am too. And we talk about, those things, that the hardships that create who you are. But, she had her struggles with drugs, meth and different things growing up, had her own mental issues and things like that.
Was she still battling it while you were growing up?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, going into the family life, my dad, he graduated high school, went to some trade schools and was, fixing tools at a place called Total Tool. It was power tools. So he kind of learned a little bit of the skills of, electronics, hydraulics, things like that. He's a brilliant guy. He can pretty much fix and do anything. But he's also a musician. He was in a band since I was 1 year old. He would play these shows to make a little bit extra money. It was funny. He brought me to pick up the money one time when I was 1 year old, and he tells me this story, and it's probably the way I am, or the reason why the way I am. But he was like, yeah, I took you to the bar to pick up this money, and I put you up on the bar stool, and you kind of just went, ugh, and then fell back, and the bartender just picked you up. He's like, you weren't even crying. And I'm like, thanks, man. I'm like, thanks, Dad. But I grew up, I would walk into his room at night sometimes, and he's playing guitar, mostly keyboard, piano. And he's, learning songs and Van Halen songs and different songs, everything. So he was the one, he was my kind of rock, kind of growing up in that sense of, he worked really hard. We didn't have much growing up. It was just me and my older brother, who was my half brother from a previous relationship with my dad. And they didn't get married until I think I was 2 or 3 years old. So my mom never changed my last name. So Scoggins was my name. I thought it was Pritchett through grade school. They never changed it. I asked my dad and mom, like, why didn't you change my name? Well, her purse got stolen. They had the paperwork. And so I seventh grade, I find out my name is Scoggins and it's not Pritchett. Well, I have 2 other younger brothers and a younger sister that are kind of separate from 7 years. And I'm like, everybody's Pritchett to include my mom. And I'm the only Scoggins. And I think, you know, at that age, I'm getting kind of like a teenager. I'm kind of, you know, not rebellious, but like, you know, what the hell? Like, that was kind of weird. So they asked me if I wanted to change my name. And I was like, no, my name's been Scoggins. And I've heard the stories of, you know, my grandpa, and something kind of hit me where I'm like, I want to change that name.
Now, did your mom and dad stay together though through your whole life?
So
or at least your early.
For a long time, it was pretty good. And then, you know, my older brother started running with some bad crowds. He started getting into doing things that, you know, and then that kind of related to my mom's side and her cousins and everything else. And it got into where she started using. But she had her mental issues with, you know, depression and kind of bipolar and gambling and things like that. And then the drugs, where my dad's just like trying to help her. And my aunt Therese was a really big part of my life too. That's my dad's sister. And she would take me, and I'd go to her house in Minneapolis for like 1 to 2 weeks out of the year, every year since I was like 6 years old to like 14, to do art classes and all these things. And
so was your mom basically bringing chaos to the house?
Yeah, I mean, when she was there, yeah, it was a lot of yelling, a lot of craziness, a lot of you don't know what you're going to get.
Yelling at you, or more yelling at your mom
everything.
And your dad?
Yeah, just everything. She would be gone for 3 days, come back home, sleep for a day and a half. And when she was gone, spending the money, my dad's like, you know, what the hell? So I was seeing that growing up from early teenage years to the point where I'm like, man, I got to try to help my dad as much as I can. And so I'm like parenting my siblings at the same time. My brother's running around doing dumb stuff.
Did you get to do anything quote unquote normal as a kid? Play sports, do that type stuff?
I tried. When I was in 6th grade, I had a best friend that was a year older than me. And, you know, he signed up for football, and we didn't have a lot of money. So when I signed up for football with him, I lied about my age. So here I am, I'm already a little guy. So I'm here, you know, I'm going to go play football and pay $75 to go up to the local street. Like any football stuff, you have like, I could have played with the 6th graders, but instead now I'm with the 7th and 8th graders. So now I'm not only the small kid for 6th grade, but now I'm playing with these guys that are probably outweighing me by 50 plus pounds. So it was kind of funny, but my best friend quit 2 weeks into it. When we start hitting, he quit. And I'm like, I can't even say that to my dad. Like, you paid this much money, I'm going to quit. I'm not a quitter. And then we had a girl on our team, and she would kick my ass. Like, it was kind of funny. We'd do the Iron Man, and I'm like, I can't even hurt this girl. Like, and it was funny because, you know, my dad, I played baseball and stuff normally growing up, but I think one story that was really big, I think, on who I wanted to become, and it was really that spark, was, you know, I was on like the receiving, I was a backup wide receiver, which I didn't really get to play because we had star people, but I was on the kickoff team, you know what I mean? And sometimes I get to play safety. The great thing about being on the kickoff team, being the smallest person, is you're the slowest person. So if they break some of the tackles and go out, they're not even looking for me anymore. And I get to throw myself at them. So like, I actually had a lot of tackles, but my dad went to one of the last games, which was pretty cool. And I remember the coach kind of threw me in. We were already getting beat by like 30 points, but he threw me in as a receiving team. And I remember going, oh shit, don't kick it to me. Don't kick it to me. And they kicked it over there, and I was like, oh, thank God. I'm sitting there waiting, and I'm like, don't kick it to me. Don't kick it to me. Don't kick. It's like 35-7. They kick it over there. I'm like, oh, thank God. Because these guys are the running backs. You know what I mean? They ended up playing for like U of M and stuff. I'm like, they're going to kick it to me. I already know they're going to kick it to me. And I remember the kick, and I'm like, oh shit. And I look at my dad, and he's looking. I'm like, oh shit. I see the ball bounce, and I grab it. I look over, and he's like, run. Start running. And I'm feeling pretty good. Like, I'm like, okay. And then all of a sudden I see nothing but two big black faces, no eyes, nothing. And I just remember just kind of like tucking. And then I remember feeling weightless. And then I remember hitting the ground. And I open my eyes and I just see grass. And I look up and my dad is just dying laughing. You know what I mean? And I'm like, and this is like one of the, peak moments with my dad watching a game. And I just remember getting up, and one of my other buddies, these are like the star players, and they ended up being a couple of years older than me in high school. So they always remembered me. He's like, dude, keep your head up, man. Like, we're losing by 40 points. Like, who cares? Like, and I remember that day, I was in the car and I was like, Dad, what happened? And he's still kind of laughing about it. And he's like,
you flew like Superman.
He's like, man, they hit you. They grabbed you. The one guy started helicopter spinning you while the other one's running for a touchdown. And I'm like, and it was one of those moments where I realized, like, maybe team sports, like in that capacity was not my big thing, but it was still team sports. Even if you're the weakest person, you're still part of the team. And one of the coolest moments, I think, that whole year was my coach. And at that time, my name was, they still knew me as Pritchett. And I remember we're just getting murdered and we're running back and forth, and the coach is mad at the whole team. And I remember him saying, he said, if you guys had as much heart as Pritchett, we'd be champions. And here I am, like, it was like Rudy, it was really during the time of Rudy. And I remember telling my dad that. And that was like, I could tell he was like, that's exactly right. Because he knew they called me Mini-Mite on the team and shit. They would put me on their shoulders and shit. And they're like, I was the worst player on the team. You know what I mean? It was just that Rudy story. And it didn't really relate that much, that it doesn't matter how big you are or how smart you are. Are you willing to continue to fight? So that was like my upbringing. It was the same story within the family dynamics of.
You mentioned previously that you realized with all the drama that your mom was bringing to the table, that you kind of had to step up and mature quicker and help your dad. Did that keep you on the straight and narrow path, especially the influence that you were around from your older brother? Or did you kind of get off the good path, so to speak?
That's a very good question, because it's kind of a two answer to it. So it definitely, looking at the 30-foot level, probably helped not make as many or as big of mistakes. But I started still, because of what was going on in the home, start to make mistakes, right? To start not knowing why I don't care about school anymore, not knowing why I decided to try to have some kind of comfort outside in that other friendships that might not have been the best. But at the same time, like, I don't want to go too far down that path. Never got any like felony gun charges or Grand Theft Auto. That I saw my brother get into those things.
Did you ever go to jail at all?
Funny story. Trying to join the military, yes, I had to turn myself in from a warrant that I had because of my brother used my name.
Oh.
3 different
Thanks, brother.
prosecutors. And he was just not thinking it was going to be a big deal.
Right.
But he had a warrant, and he's like, yeah, my name is Brian Scoggins and my birthday's this. And like, and then at the same time, it was like, I went to MEPS and ready to join at 18. And here I am like, hey, you got, warrants. I'm like, and you know how that goes, where you're like, you go to court and you plead. Well, I turned myself in first and foremost, got a bail bond, got those things. But very interesting when you're 18 years old and you are trying to separate and get into the military, and you have to book yourself and you have to go through the process. And now you're kind of seeing that side of things. And I remember going in there and we're sitting in this big room. And
now, did they actually make you go through the process at a police station, get arrested, as opposed to just going to the courthouse and, hey, here's my ID?
Nope. I went in and got booked, got my fingerprints, went in holding. And I'm sitting there with all these people, and they're like, what's your story? And I'm like, well, I told my story. I'm like, I'm innocent. They're like, yeah, me too, man. And I'm like,
we're all innocent.
I'm like, yeah. And they're like, you're going to eat your taco salad? I'm like, no, you can have it. Shouldn't be here, hopefully, too long, you know? So, yeah, it was kind of an interesting situation. But I mean, I don't have any animosity to my brother. I mean, I know where he was, and right now he's doing amazing. Were you
able to resolve it rather quickly?
No, it took about 2 years. So I had 3 different prosecutors. So I would go to court with my brother, and my brother was there because I was like, look, if you don't come with me, we have problems. Like, I get you made a mistake. And he's like, well, why didn't you just pay this money? I'm like, dude, because I'm not trying to have anything on my record. Like, I'm joining the military.
Was that what was holding it up? Was that they wanted you to pay a fine and you just didn't want to pay it?
Yeah, it was a fine, but I didn't pay the fine. And then it went into a court hearing, you know what I mean? And then it goes in. It was probably something that took so long where it's like, okay, you missed 2 summons or something. I didn't get any of it. You know what I mean? I didn't get.
So there was actually a component where they imposed a fine on you because of what your brother did. And then you didn't pay that, which then generated actual issues for you.
Yeah. On 3 separate occasions over I don't know how long, you know what I mean? I never kind of even wrote that into anything. It was, went there, hey, Your Honor, I'm not guilty. This wasn't me. Here's my brother. And my brother's like, yes, it was me. And he turned himself in. And
how did you get a fine then?
I didn't get a fine, but I still had to go back to court. So like that was that one time.
Oh, okay.
And then it was the same thing.
He had multiple cases that he had used your name.
How do you plead? Not guilty. Okay, well, we'll see you in 3 months.
Got it.
And you're like, and my recruiter's like, which you're not supposed to do as a recruiter, but he's like, you know, hey, he's trying to join the Marine Corps. Like, he's trying to make his numbers, you know? And I'm like, so that took a couple of years. So at that point, I mean, I'll rewind a little bit, but yeah, I was having trouble in school from the family situation.
In the sense that you just didn't have the desire to apply yourself?
That's exactly it. I mean, just like anybody, I wasn't exactly interested in what was going on in the education system.
Were you just checked out, or were you causing problems at school?
In the beginning, I was. I was really having a rough time around 7th and 8th grade is when I started going the wrong path. Just not going to school. Starting to build a relationship with my mom. You know what I mean? Where I could do pretty much whatever I want, because she probably started seeing the separation of what was to come. And, you know, you're trying to win your kids over in a sense of like, if we do split, who's going with who? You know what I mean? So that I started taking advantage of that situation, started, you know, trying to be the cool kid. Yeah, I started smoking and drinking and doing stupid stuff. To a point where I could just decide if I kind of wanted to go to school. I don't feel good. And my mom would be like, okay. You know, so I was going Monday, missing Tuesday, going Wednesday, to the point where I could do okay in school with tests, but you miss 10 days, you're not going to pass. So my middle school, I had to actually go to a alternative learning, like a fresh start program for 9th grade, which is like the bad kids, right? Now I'm going into the bad kid, but I ultimately graduated that program, which got me enough credits to get into it. But I was still kind of missing things on the school front. And my aunt at one point tried to get me out of that situation where she was going to send me to like an art school. Because remember, I've been doing art and doing things where it was almost like a Juilliard art, like where they'd pull you and you'd live away from everything off campus, and you'd be like acting, dancing, doing all this art stuff. But I just, at that point, I couldn't get my grades to the point where it was like C average, you know what I mean? And I just I was missing something. And the really turning point was really finding God, was being born again Christian, having a situation and an event in my life where, I mean, I was right there at the death's door, and really surrendering to God because I always had the faith, and I knew my mom, she believes in God, but it wasn't like she knew anything about any of it. Now, you know, my dad at the same time was against that because of the Catholic upbringing, right? Which most people at that age and his age that went to a Catholic school. So it had been beaten down his throat that he basically stepped away from it. I mean, he was probably getting beat by like
And I say beat down his throat, figuratively speaking, but you're also you're also talking an era where if you went to any type of Catholic school, there was corporal punishment.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of my aunts and uncles are kind of away from that.
The death's door event, was it you or somebody you were close to that?
Oh, it was me. Yeah. I mean, I could have probably died in that situation. So, and I don't want to go into it too much.
Is it while you were in high school?
Yeah. Yep.
And
so,
would you say that was your turning point? Was that your pivot point?
Yeah, I was about 15 years old. And if anybody knew me back then, I mean, I went from one of the guys that you have to be careful in saying anything bad to because I just didn't care, to now I'm carrying a Bible around my high school. Like, and they would call me preacher, but they would do it in a passive aggressive way to not. But I mean, I was literally trying. And that night was surreal to me. I mean, it was everything from the turning point, from who I am now to I don't know that person. So you hear people talk about what it is to like be born again and know like it is different. Like you are not the same. And I'm not saying I'm a perfect person now and I'm still a sinner and I don't actively go to church as much as part of like that type of like religion, but I mean, we say our prayers, we raise our kids to say our prayers. It's everything. It's my foundation. But that night wasn't just like a good idea. It was literally the lights came on like bright. I heard angels singing, like everything went away, like a feeling that I could still hear it and a feeling that I can still feel, but it's like something that would break you down. And it was the next morning, I've never felt more love, more lightness of like who I was, like just of love for everybody, like just any person. And now that I've never felt that close since that time. But that was when I really did a 180 pivot. And through my high school days, when I was still going to high school.
For the dynamics at that time, were your mom and dad separated?
It was just happening.
And
just like right before they separated.
Did you have to make the conscious decision to step back from your mom also?
Yeah. It's awesome that you kind of picked up on that because that's exactly right. And it was something for a while and still now it's like, because I had to know and discern what was right for me as can I save my mom going down that path at 15, 16 years old? And what is that going to look like? Or am I going to try to get on the narrow where my dad was taking me to another high school after my normal high school to pick up packets to make up 10 credits my senior year? You know what I mean? So but also knowing what's best for my brothers and sisters and them. So my mom, when they separated, she got some money from my dad and they split some stuff. And that was probably the worst thing that could have ever happened. Because she just took that money and just went crazy with it. Where my dad was trying to pick up the pieces and be there for my younger brothers and sisters, my two brothers and sisters with their sports and with everything else. I mean, being that dad, like he was that dad.
Right.
And I think he's seen some of those things from me and my brother, my older brother, not being there because he's trying to work, that now he's just like, game on. Like I need to be there for those kids. And it's so weird too, because me and my older brother, in a sense, that upbringing made us that much stronger and resilient in comparison to some of my other brother's decisions, right? And you're talking my younger brother from me. I mean, he was taking calculus at 10th grade and they want him to be on the math team. And I'm the shortest. He's like 6'3". They were dunking basketballs when they were 10, 11 years old. He was on the Little League Series baseball team for Minnesota. He was on traveling team. I mean, he could have done anything. But he started making those bad decisions. I mean, they graduated high school, but he could have done anything. And now he's in his mid-30s with multiple kids and nowhere to live, and hits me up for money all the time and different things. And I'm like, that is what hurts the most, because me leaving in the military, not only do I feel that at that separation from my mom, but now I'm feeling it from like, I had to go to take the next step I got called to service, you know, and it wasn't something I've always been interested in it. I used to read books, but I got called to service feeling like that was what God wanted me to do. And then 9/11 hits my senior year. So, I mean.
Now, you mentioned family members who had served, but your dad didn't. When is 9/11 your deciding moment that, hey, I'm going to go serve? Or were you already, quote unquote, in that pipeline, just waiting to graduate kind of deal?
So in the beginning, I kind of grew up as a young kid. I would go to the library and I would read Richard Marcinko books, like the great, Rogue Warrior, which is like, if you know, he's a Navy SEAL guy. He's like probably one of the legend guys. So growing up as an 80s kid with all the movies, I knew that was a calling to me. And I wasn't scared to get hit or get hurt or try to push myself. So I wanted to be a Navy SEAL for the longest time. That was like my dream. Growing up, my dad, he doesn't like the military stuff. He doesn't want us, he's seen his brothers deal with stuff and come home from, the Vietnam War and things.
Was your dad the youngest of the brothers?
No, he was kind of like in the middle. So he had, he has one younger brother and then the rest are older. But there was a separation between the oldest, or Leo, probably by a number of years.
Enough of a gap where he just missed Vietnam kind of deal?
More like his brother John, who was like one of the third oldest, came back and, had the money, had the nice fastback Mustang GT and all that. And so my dad's seen what military was, but above that was like our Leo, my oldest uncle, he was like a surgeon during some stuff. So he's seeing those things on a daily basis. But also I think my dad was smart enough, being in a band growing up around that time, you're kind of rebelling too. And then coming up from like, the Bush era and what's going on with 9/11. And he's kind of like, they're all shady. This is kind of all BS. And then he's got his son that he's finally working on to try to go to school or a college. And then my aunt trying to bribe me out of joining the military too. She's like, I'll pay for anything. She had enough money she could. She's like, you want to go to Harvard? You can get in, I'll pay for it. And I'm like, no, I need to do this myself. Because at that point, I already started working on myself enough to be like, hey, I can do this. I need to do this.
So did you actually go to the Navy recruiter?
I did.
And what ended up, because obviously we've already mentioned that you were in the Marine Corps. So what was the derailment, so to speak, from giving Navy SEAL a try?
There's a couple of things, but one of them was my dad was able to kind of switch my focus of like, why do you want to go kill somebody? Obviously you have this savior complex, right? Especially with my religious stuff. I'm like, I'm destined for more than just, whatever. I want to save people. And he's like, well, then what about, some other way of service?
Quick clarification. Are you going to the recruiters while you're still in high school before you're 18? So your mom or dad would have had to sign for the delayed entry? Or are you doing this after high school when you're already 18?
After high school, already 18. So I ended up meeting, so right when I kind of found my religion and my faith, I promised God I was going to help somebody else and pull them up. And I went for about 3 months trying to help people. And some of them I wasn't able to help and save. And they got into like some really bad stuff. And I saw my friends really making bad decisions where I pulled myself away. But I met one of my buddies, Justin, and I was in a explorer group. So fire explorers, just like you would have police explorers, we had a fire explorers. And that's where I jumped into that. And then I started competing in those things for a number of years. And then, I ended up doing my EMT once, like later on, but that was what I wanted to do. But I still wanted to try out the SEAL stuff. So when I went and I talked to the Navy recruiter, they were a little heavier set, a little bit like, yeah, we can make you a damage control guy on a ship. And if you want to try out for the SEALs and all these things. And I'm kind of like, all right.
What year is it that you went to talk to the recruiter?
This would
The
have
first
been
time.
2002.
Okay. So literally
Kind of my
right
graduation
after
year.
9/11,
Yeah.
per
Yep.
se.
Yep. And yeah, I was ready to go. And then I just didn't get a good feeling. And then I wanted to go talk to the Air Force recruiter because I was like, oh, there's this thing called pararescue. And I'm like, well, that's cool. I'm already doing my MT. I did, I'm into that stuff. We were doing competitions for spinal mobilization and all that kind of backbore, all that, EMS stuff. And I'm like, that would be really cool. Like, so others may live. Like, man, I'm like reading magazines. And then at that time, Surviving the Cut, the show was coming on, and Mail Call and all those things. So I was like, yep, this is it. But then I remember going to the Air Force recruiter and they weren't there because they don't have to be there because all the kids just kind of show up. And I remember looking around and I saw the Army and I saw a bunch of Polaroids on there. And I was like, for some reason, I was like, no, maybe it was the color scheme or the branding. And then this guy walks out and he's like, why are you eye fucking my shit? And I'm like, excuse me? He's like, get in here. And he starts yelling at me. And I'm kind of like, what the hell is this? I didn't even know what the Marine Corps was.
He was Coast Guard, right?
Marine Corps. Yeah. Could have been. They're the same way, man. They would have been probably offered me a beer or something. But I remember looking up and I'm looking at their branding and I see this thing on the wall and it's like, my mother is a K-bar, my father is an M16. I was born in a bomb crater. I'm a lean, mean, amphibious monster sworn to protect America and apple pie. And I stole the eagle from the Air Force and the rope from the Army and all that. And I smacked the shit out of my, I drink like a sailor, or what do you say? I drink like a soldier. I cuss like a sailor, and I'll smack the shit out of both of them. I'm like, this is like pretty crazy cocky. And he's like, what makes you think you're good enough? And I'm just like, tell me more. You know what I mean? It's just like the normal Marine Corps thing is like, they pull out the benefit tags and they start kind of getting into your mind. And I'm like, okay, this is, I think, what I want to do. And my first recruiter that I was actually assigned to was kind of an asshole. Like, he was the one yelling and shit like that. And when I went to MEPS, all that stuff happening. And then I said something about taking I think an acne medication. And he's like, I told you to shut up. He's like strangling me with the car seat. I'm like, dude, you can't touch me, man. He's like, what do you mean? You're 18. I'm like, do whatever. I'm like, God. But then of course I didn't go into the service then. So, I went to college a little bit.
So you completely stepped away from the recruiting process while you were dealing with your warrants and stuff? Yeah.
That's when I found out. I'm like, okay, I have to do this. Then I was like, okay, I'll go to college. I'll go to a community college. I remember I took a philosophy class and I didn't prepare for the philosophy class and sitting in there with the class and like, yeah, we're going to talk about euthanasia. I'm like, why do I care about young people in China? Like, euthanasia, and they're looking at me like, are you trying to be funny or something? I'm like, no. I'm like, I just don't know. And I knew right then, I'm like, okay, I need to step back and take things serious. But I did my EMT basic. And then at that point, right when I was kind of done with that, I ran into the same recruiter, a different recruiter that was helping me through the legal stuff. But then he hit me up. He seen me at Applebee's. Then he's like, hey, you ready to do this? And I was like, yeah, everything's good now. Let's go. He's like, I know you wanted to be, a reservist to be a firefighter. Is that still the thing? I was like, dude, I just need to go. So let's just do active duty. So I signed my contract, and with the Marine Corps, you sign up to be a Marine. It's not, we're going to promise you a rose garden, right? We can probably give you a contract that, it might be infantry, might be something. So I signed up to be a crash fire rescue firefighter on, aviation. I was like, that's awesome. That's perfect. I get to serve. I get to help people and save lives. That's all I wanted to do is pull a couple people out of a building or something, Then I'm at boot camp, and when they're handing out, I graduate boot camp, which wasn't even hard for me. It was hard in some sense, but people messing with me or hitting me or making me drink things. I had an older brother, man. I was kind of laughing at some of that stuff, but they're handing out your assignments, and I'm like, what is ordinance? What's ordinance? Like laws and rules? What's ordinance? He's like, no, you put bombs on aircraft. I'm like, but this is not what I signed up for. He's like, that's what you're going to get. So that was my job. So, I mean, that's where
So you actually went in with an MOS contract and they switched it on you, or did you go in open contract and then they just assigned you to ordnance?
So it goes to a certain field, and there's like 6 jobs that you could get on that, depending on those class seats and what they need at that time. So I think a big mistake when people, if you're looking to join the military, at least the Marine Corps, do not get like a Marsoc or recon contract or anything, like a recon contract. Like when I was a recruiter, I would tell kids, don't do that, because all you're going to do is go to infantry school, and then you're going to have friends that are normal infantry guys, and you might purposely just wash out of the recon stuff to be friends with it. They're not going to make you infantry necessarily. They only have so many spaces. The Marine Corps is so tight and small that they can't just put you to wherever and move you around. I mean, there's class seats down to the number. So I joined with the ability to be a crash fire rescue, aviation ordnance, and an aircraft control, like you'd make runways or something like that and put the lights on. So luckily I got ordnance, which to me was a lot of fun because I'm working directly on the aircraft, loading them, and it could be hot loading so they could be still spinning. We're refueling them, and we're in austere environments away from everybody else. And the way that we're doing war now is just like that. We've load up on one aircraft, we drop into a zone, we set up a quick forward arming and refueling point, and we're gone. And that way we can refuel and rearm those that are the attack helicopters. So
when was it that you actually went in, like day one boot camp?
2004, June 28th, 2004. I stood on the yellow footprints.
Anything significant happened during boot camp, or were you able to kind of loosely say slide through it?
No, I think the most significant thing probably was church, and seeing so many Marines from so many different places like really go to church and cry, and the release of what that meant. And don't know if it was as much as it was church or a place where you could be together and really decompress, given such a crazy situation. I mean, you're in boot camp, it's pretty crazy.
Any point where you were at a moment of, man, I made the wrong decision, I shouldn't have joined the military?
Yeah, boot camp, yeah, for sure. Receiving week, we're standing outside of dental. And this guy was already kind of weird when we're on the bus. They make you put your head down, and he's kind of going, put your head up, they're fucking with you, and you're like, dude, you know where we're going, right? Like, I don't know if I think there might've been something a little loose. But we go through receiving week for the first week, and that's where they're kind of getting you all your stuff. You don't really sleep a lot, but you're still not in it. You're not Black Friday. You didn't meet your real drill instructors, right? So you're in the receiving battalion, so they're getting your shots. And I remember standing outside, and well, first off, they say, like, if anybody touches you, all those kind of stuff, you come talk to me. And that guy, I remember seeing his face. So we go out, we march out to dental, and we're standing out there in line, and one guy's like, we're supposed to sign this form, and he doesn't want to sign this form. And the Navy corpsman guy is like, dude, look, I don't want to go in there and get the drill instructors. Like, he was scared of the drill instructors. He's like, I know what's going to happen. And the guy's like, no, I want to see my lawyer. And I just remember going, man, this is not going to go good. And he said it another time, and the dude's like, look, man, this is the last time. I'm going to go get the guy. And he's like, no, I want to see my lawyer. You can't do this to me. I want to, blah, 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 blah. So the guy goes in, and this is outside. This is not behind closed doors. The guy comes out, and he's like, who's doing, he starts screaming, who's doing what? And I remember the kid kind of looks, and he goes, you're not going to sign my form? And he's like, I want to see and he just starts choking him. And I'm like, he's like, you ready to sign? He's like, no, I want to see and he starts choking him again. And I'm like, I'm looking around, I'm like, this is like outside at MCRD. I'm like, he's like, you going to sign my form? He's like, no. And he starts, the kid's almost, he's turning purple, and he finally drags him in. We never seen that kid again. At that point, I was like, okay, this is not something you can just be like, oh no.
Shit just got real.
Shit got real. Shit was like, oh. And then, Black Friday, everybody has that same, and they do it on purpose to they strip you down, make you go, it's chaos. And at that time, you got to remember, this is 2004. This is the evasion. This is invasion. This is the time when those guys are coming back from probably the most fighting that was going on. So in their eyes as drill instructors, they're like, turn it up. Like, I mean, we went from 85 to like 52 to like maybe 65 when we picked up a couple of guys. But yeah, it was intense during that time. But to me, it was almost like being in an out of body experience. I mean, yeah, I got grabbed and I touched my nose at one point, right? And that was like the most significant time. I touched my nose and the drill instructor saw me and he's like, oh, you want to touch your, and so he grabbed my wrist to try to make me hit myself. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not, And then he grabbed my throat and I'm like, okay, I guess I'll release. And so I started so he's beating me with my own hands and I'm like, getting hit. He's like, you want to touch your face? And I'm like, all right. And I'm bleeding and he's like, push. And so I start pushing and there's just blood just coming out of my nose. And I think at that point he goes, oh shit. And he goes, clean this up. And then I think he took enough time where he's like, oh man, he probably saw his career flash. He's like, you had to hit yourself, right? You had to hit yourself. I'm like, yes, sir. Like, yeah. Right after that, I became a squad leader, which was kind of funny. And I was a double rat. I think I was about 142. And the double rat is double ration. So they're like, which is great because you get to eat as much as you want and they're trying to pack this stuff on. And I remember we failed initial drill where we're doing our drill stuff and we failed because every squadron, they compete against each other, right? So not squadron, but platoon. And so everybody pretty much gets fired. And then my senior drill instructor brings me in and he's like, Scoggins, do you want squad leader or double rats? And I was like, double rats, sir. And he threw that shit at me, got pissed because you have this little tag and you get to eat more. And then I started making friends because as a squad leader, I had fun, like kind of being a dick to everybody, like smacking hands, like tight fists, like you're like a little drill instructor yourself, like yelling at people and stuff. But to me, I think you have a group that are all coming from very much the same background. Like I could talk to any one of those guys and they probably have worse stories than me. And then you put them all in tighty whities on a line and you have a drill instructor that's, if not anything, is probably the funniest dude in the world. And he's sick in the mind. And you are already getting sicker in the mind because you think it's funny. And then behind that drill instructor who's trying to make you like be all this, like snap, doing hygiene, your buddy's pulling his junk out of his whitey tighties and making funny faces. And you're just like, it becomes almost like a summer camp of like chaos and funniness. Like when you get that, and I think that's where a lot of the sick sense of humor comes into play, where it's just like, because you've already dealt with so much already that, that chaos feels like home. It's not, I don't know if that probably will resonate with some people, like where the uncertainty becomes normal. So it's not like a big deal. Like, so you pick up on the funny things because other people are freaking out, but you're like, if it's not you, it's kind of funny. And even if it is you, like, it's funny. But the drill instructors, I think, appreciate when you can, like I had friends that would go get IT'd on purpose. Like they would walk up to the drill instructor and just start messing with the drill instructor. You know what I mean? And like, those are like the best Marines because they're just like, it's funny.
When you realize it's just a game and you can have, and to have fun with it,
yeah, changes
the whole dynamic.
Yeah. And to an extent where you don't get in trouble, but
not to the point where you
don't care.
Yeah. Or you're, as odd as it sounds, you're not disrespecting the process. You can operate within the parameters.
You don't have to take yourself so serious.
Right.
The ego is like, once you strip that away, like who cares? Like normally I wear a 32 underwear, but I'm wearing a 46 right now. And I've got it tied off because somebody else is wearing my underwear because they made us throw it all in the middle and say you got 30 seconds to find some underwear. That's funny. If you can't laugh at that chaos, I mean, it's kind of like, you're not going to be happy or laugh at anything. It makes you kind of resilient enough to go. And I think that's part of the stages of those transitions when you become and you suffer together like that, you miss it, because like anything with especially with men, I think we give each other shit when you know that that person has an ego. But if that person can fire right back and not have an ego about it and be funny, you're like, okay, you're not weak, or you're not like egotistical or anything like that. So I think, and you find those people, and it's like, I've found a family, you know, within the Marine Corps. So I knew I was going to stay.
Where was your first duty station?
Oh, that's a good story. So I go through boot camp. I go through combat school.
MCT?
Yeah. It's kind of like a real fast, get you in, get you out, get the basics. You understand how to move a little bit, shoot, don't shoot somebody else that's running. I'm up, he sees me, I'm down kind of thing.
If you're like me and you love your coffee, my go-to lately has been Blue Line Roasting. They're a Tennessee-based and law enforcement-owned company, roasting small batches of premium beans. You've got choices from Patriot, which is their light roast, to Failure Drill, their dark roast. They roast all their beans fresh, within 48 hours, and ship them to you even faster. You can also get your beans ground for you or delivered whole. Your choice. But here's the cool part. A portion of what you spend goes to support law enforcement families dealing with the impact of line-of-duty injuries or loss. You get an incredible coffee, and they get the help they need. Choose a single bag, a sample pack, or start a subscription so you're never out of coffee. Oh, and shipping is always free. Also, for the listeners of this podcast, use the promo code TRANSITION10 to get 10% off your purchase. So head over to bluelineroasting.com and make every cup count.
And then you go and you check in your first command, and it was April 1st. April Fool's Day, I check in. I go to IPAC, and this guy's messing with me at IPAC for probably 6 hours. And finally, one of the warrant officers like, dude, why are you still here? And so I finally get switched orders to another one because these guys were already gone. And then so they switched me to 161. So HMM 161. Now it's a tilt rotor squadron, but before then it was a Marine medium helicopter squadron, which was the CH-46s, the old frogs. And so I check in, and I meet the commanding officer, which he just...
Where is this duty station at?
This is in Miramar, Miramar, California. So I come in, I'm this, PFC, I'm coming in, I'm like ready to go. And they're like, I hope you're ready because we're leaving in like 4 months.
Did you go to Parris Island or MCRD?
I went to MCRD.
So by choice? Like do they give you it or they?
So Minnesota's funny because it's the Mississippi.
Okay.
So I just happened to fall on that side. They do give you a choice if you have like somebody that went to like Parris Island in your family.
Got it.
You can't just like pick and choose though. You know what I mean? So they're like, so yeah, I check in and San Diego's amazing. And we just got brand new barracks. And I'm like, this is great. Well, you're not going to stay here because we're leaving. Because, in boot camp, you're like, to me, in my mind, I'm like, it's not real. I'm not going to Iraq. No way. But they're like, no, 99% of you guys are going to go to Iraq. So I show up and
pack your sunscreen.
They're like, don't even unpack your shit. We're leaving in 4 months. And I remember seeing the CEO at the time was Lieutenant Colonel Kaufman. I think he's probably a general. He's probably since retired now, but he had this huge scar on the side of his face where the previous deployment, he got his cheek blown off. So they were doing a CASVAC mission and they took small arms fire and a round came off and hit a SAPI and blew his chin out. So he's sitting there and they still landed the plane and everything. And so here's this commanding officer with this huge scar and he's like sitting down between me and you. And he's like, you ready to go out there? You ready to dodge mortars and get after it? And I'm like, oh shit. If he got shot in the face, I'm a PFC. I'm like, oh shit, this is real. Cause
shit just got real.
Real. Even in aviation, you're like, I'm not, I'm going to be in the back, but that's not the case anymore with the way things kind of went. You're at any point in time, you can get hit with something. So we go to TQ, Al Qaeda. So it's, got kind of like the Sunni triangle of like all the bad areas. And we're kind of like in the middle in order, because we have to be ready to go out there and do CASEVAC missions or drop troops off or do whatever, right? And we've got roughly 20 aircraft. And then you have the Cobra attack helicopters too, that are kind of our guardian angels when we do go out. But at any given time, when that bell goes off, everybody's running to the line to get everything ready to go. Corpsmen jump on, you got crew chiefs, you got pilots, they go out, you have your backups. I mean, we could get out of there within 2 minutes from taking a number 2 to a biffy where you're like, the pilots are in there in a porta-john to that bell starts going. I mean, they don't even wipe. They just go. But we would get probably rocket attacked or mortared, I would say probably 3 times a week in volleys. Because this is the time when, I mean, they're just kind of shooting things, which was really crazy because at the end of it, I had a big rocket land 10 feet from me and it didn't blow up. So EOD comes out, they pull this shit out with sledgehammers and chains pretty much. And they're like, yeah, it wasn't armed. And so everyone's like, dude, Scoggins was like standing right there. I thought something, when it hit, I thought something whizzed by I thought I was getting shot at first. I was like, what the hell was that? You know what I mean? And 3 of them hit the base that day. None of them went off. But if I was there, I mean, it would have blew the roof off of that building. I would have been nothing.
Right.
So what was funny was like, we were doing the purpose-driven life, like the 40-day purpose-driven life book. And we had Bible study and stuff like that. I never felt in danger. And at that point, you don't care anyways. You're like, you start getting mortared. You're like, I'm just going to continue to play video games or whatever you're doing, because if it hits me, it hits me, because I'm going to run out to my gear and get hit anyways. So you're just kind of like, you kind of get used to the thought of living in a 6-man tent when anybody can walk in or your tent can catch fire. You're just like, if I die, I die kind of thing. It was weird, but I remember I wasn't feeling any different way after like that happened, but people would come up to me and be like, dude, like, you're the blessed one, man. Like, did you change your underwear? Like, can you shit yourself? And what's really cool is like a week later, I got baptized finally, like 50 feet away from that place where, I mean, you think about no weapon from the enemy shall prosper against me, like it was apparent that could have been another moment. And I'd always look at, okay, my first time I should have died. That time I should have died. Like, I have 9 lives. So like one of my tag names, like playing video games and stuff, was like 7 left. And then I became Gun E7. So it's like an E7. But I have 7 lives left, right? So that was probably one of the most pivotal moments from that deployment. And then fast forward, I did 2 more deployments with that squadron. All
within your first enlistment?
Yeah.
So you guys were at a high op tempo.
Yeah, it was like 1-1, not even. So you'd come back and you'd kind of decompress. You'd get, new aircraft. We'll switch stuff around a little bit. You'll do like a WTI or a ITX, which it's pretty much the ITX, integrated training exercises, are the ones where we're kind of doing stuff with the other elements of the Marine Corps, where it's like the ground elements and stuff like that. So, but we were turning and burning. So I went to the second deployment. At that point, they're already bringing green bean and different things to Iraq. So you're like, oh, they're actually starting to get contracts. We're getting money. Because the first time my vest was like an old vest and I had to tape it. Now they have like this, like throughout later on, I'm like, I don't even know how to put this shit on, because it's got like rip cords and shit that can, and you're like, why do I have all this shit? And you just don't even want to go turn it back into SIF. You're like, it's in the plastic and you're telling me it's dirty. You know what I mean? Like, I have to clean this. I just opened it for you. But the second deployment, the only time we got attacked was when we landed. They hit a fuel cell. And at that point too, we lost an aircraft from the squadron we were taking over for 364, Morphine 12, from a rocket that hit them. And so we kind of knew those guys a little bit, which was kind of hard, you know what I mean? Because they come in, they check out armors kits and stuff for the 50 cal, and their shit's still there, you know what I mean? And it was a little bit more real at that point too, especially not getting blown up or not losing anybody the first deployment. But that deployment went pretty good. And then I actually extended my contract to go on my third deployment because I started making a friendship with a new Marine that came in, Cody Anderson, which I'll talk a little bit about too here in a little bit. But my biggest thing was also the staff sergeant. I wanted to help because I, at this point, was a corporal E4, looking at sergeant, you know what I mean? Like, and all the other guys that were kind of experienced were kind of leaving or getting out. And the staff sergeant was like, hey, I need guys. And I started dating my my wife at the time. And I was like, hey, I know we're meeting, but I'm going to go on this deployment. And she was actually like, okay. And she was good through the whole deployment. Now, when you extended the first time, were you thinking just one more enlistment, or were you actually turn the corner and you're going, I'm going to do a career? So I was kind of 50-50 on it. So I started getting in Jiu-jitsu at about 2006 with same place, Fabio Santos, where Jocko Willink was training and things like that. At this time, he wasn't famous, but it was like, it's kind of cool to kind of a plug. But Fabio Santos is like straight lineage from the Gracies. So I started getting into martial arts and I started training. Like that's all I cared about doing. Previous to that, my girlfriend and through high school, we ended up we got married when I was a Lance Corporal. I did my first deployment. I went and got married on paper. Like every Lance Corporal being stupid, right? Like, don't do that. So, my gunny was like this big black guy with a gold tooth from Mississippi. He's like, Scoggins, don't go home on leave and get married. And I'm like, yes, gunny, come back. In one ear, out the other. So I go out on leave. Yeah. I go out on leave, get married, don't listen, do the deployment. I'm saving all this money, come back, find out she's cheating on me. Well, actually took leave to go get married. We paid for it all. Called that same gunny. Hey, gunny, I need to extend my leave. And he's like, why? He's like, because I'm getting divorced. So it's a Marine tale, I guess. And no ill will to her, but I mean, we were 21 years old at the time. And it's like, because I joined at 20. Remember, this is the 18 to 2 years. So we were together for like 5 or 6 years. But I mean, what was I thinking to try to pull a girl out of Minnesota to be a Marine wife when I'm deploying like nonstop? It's kind of stupid. So I think she probably subconsciously did something. So it wasn't like I was mad. It was funny. We went to the courthouse and we were both the happiest people. And they're like, your guys are kind of doing like an annulment, like divorce kind of thing. Like, and you guys are like holding hands and like happy. And I'm like, yeah, because I think we kind of knew better. But anyways, so I did have some issues with dating. So all I worried about was training, fighting. I was like, I'm going to save this money and go to Thailand, be a Thai fighter, fight some Thai guys. I kind of got a Thai build anyways. Like I was like, so, are you thinking about doing this while you're staying active in the Marine Corps? Or are you thinking about getting out and going to be a professional fighter? Yep. Yeah. I was like going to go to Phuket and do that for a while. And so my staff sergeant's like, you could go get fapped out to the hotel for a while and just train. So that's all I was doing was like training, doing jiu-jitsu. And I remember the first time I did jiu-jitsu, I'm like getting beat up by a 13-year-old kid. You know what I mean? I'm like, what the hell is this? And nobody knew it at that time. So when you're going through like the Marine Corps combatants, I'm like choking everybody out. They're like, we don't understand how it was, because I was training it was like a secret. But then after. How'd you get introduced to it? That same staff sergeant that talked me into going on that third deployment. He was like, hey, this flyer. It was just a piece of paper flyer. And this is like when tap out and everything was a big thing. And I'm like, okay. So I went there and I mean, it was a small place. And I remember bringing my friends, the Marines and stuff. And Fabio came up to me. He's like, I don't need you to bring anybody here if they're not going to show up. And so that's all I did. And when I first started dating my wife now, I was so obsessed with training and fighting that she was thinking I was like cheating on her or going out. Like she was like, hey, from the last, 2 weeks, we'd go out to eat. And I called you and you didn't call me back until 11 o'clock. And I was like, well, I was training. She's like, who does that for 6 hours? And I was like, I do. So that's all I was really into was doing like Muay Thai, doing MMA classes. I would do like 3 classes a day, Monday through Friday. I never chased women or went to the bars or any of that kind of stuff. I was the 300 PFTer. and doing that. And that was my big thing. So that was always a chip on my shoulder too. So when I went out to my third deployment, I extended, my wife she was a girlfriend at the time. She was amazing. Waited for me, didn't cheat, did anything. I'm like, she's, I think, special. Now at this time I'm either going to do fighting or I want to do like Marsoc. Marsoc became a thing. So I started getting my preparation with a couple of other my buddies to get interviewed and try to do that pipeline and tryouts. But then I started thinking to myself, what am I doing this for? Is this an ego thing? Am I just, am I really wanting that kind of life? When you start to peel back what it means to serve in special forces, it was almost the same thing as like, why am I forcing my girlfriend previously to be a military wife? You don't even know what that means. And even my wife now will tell you, you don't know what it is to be a military spouse. Like, people say, well, you knew what you were getting into. It's like, no, you don't. You have no idea what you're getting into until you're in it. So after my, those deployments, I had to really go. It brought me back to what my dad was saying is like, why are you do you want to kill people or do you want to, is there something that you're trying to prove? Do you want to save people? What are you trying to do? And it was probably that ego complex of what it is. But at the same time, I still wanted to have a family. I still wanted to have a wife. And now I have somebody that I can rely on. I said, you know what? I'm not going to go down that path. And I re-enlisted in Iraq for that deployment, came back, and they already had me for recruiting duty or drill instructor. Like, you don't have a choice. It's like, you denied it the first time saying you're going to get out. Guess what? You either do this or you can get out. So returned home, moved in with her.
Where'd you get assigned for recruiting duty?
What's that?
Where'd you get assigned for recruiting duty?
So I actually flipped a coin in front of the career retention specialist. I was going to do DI, and I flipped a coin and it pissed him off. You know what I mean? And I got recruiting duty. And so I was supposed to stay local somewhere not with snow. My wife is from Orange County, California. She's not going to go to Minnesota. So that was out of the question. Nowhere would she want to go back to Minnesota after meeting my family that resembles the show Shameless. If you ever watch Shameless, I mean, it's chaotic. So she's like, we're not going to Minnesota. And nowhere was snow. That was the deal. Nowhere was snow. You could do Georgia, maybe Florida, Texas, or California. And I go to recruiter school, and I remember a guy was like, hey, we need people to volunteer for Denver, Colorado.
There's no snow in Denver.
There's no, what do I know? Maybe I'm not a very, at this point, I'm not a very smart.
It actually gets pretty warm though in the summer.
Yeah. Humidity. And I mean, she's like, nowhere with bugs, nowhere with humidity, nowhere with snow. And I'm like, this place doesn't exist except here in California. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, and I hear her voice, but then I hear another voice, and the other voice says, get up. And so I volunteer. I come back and like, shit, I got to bring this up to her. And at this point, we're not married. We're still like dating, and possibly I'm leaving to another state. She's coming with me. So at this point, we're kind of like engaged, And I go, what do you think about Denver, Colorado? I'm like trying to play it off. And she's like, are you kidding me? Like, what do you mean? She already knew. She goes, you signed up, didn't you? I was like, yeah, but it doesn't mean, there was like 20 other people that volunteered. Doesn't mean I'm going to get it. 5 more weeks go down the road, and she's still like, you better not get it. And then they hand selected 4 people to go to Denver, Colorado. And she's just like, she's very upset. Her friend's like, give her some space, give her some time. But Denver's awesome. So we were supposed to get something closer to Denver. We ended up getting Grand Junction, Colorado. I don't know if you're familiar with Grand Junction, Colorado. It's on the western slope, kind of by Utah, kind of rural, very rural. 31,000 square miles was our area. So we'd have like Aspen, Steamboat, Telluride. If you ever watched The Ranch with a Netflix series with Ashton Kutcher, that's one of that ranch show for the listeners. That's like one of the little offset local towns. But she, at the time, she finished school. She was a teacher. So she was trying to get into teaching in California. And then we go to Colorado, and it was a blessing because she got to teach in Colorado. And I check into the command, and my team is like absolutely awesome. It was absolutely a blessing that my orders got switched in the Denver to go to Denver to Grand Junction. And that's when I started first, like really getting bit by what I'm doing now of like service to other service members. And I got a chance to fight some MMA fights while I was recruiting. So they said, hey, who wants to go up to this Army versus Marine Corps fight? It's, cage fight up at the Grizzly Rose. It's a little bar. It was like 250 people. And I'm like, wait, what? I get to go fight? I'm like, yeah, but nobody knows, like I've been training like hardcore for the last 3 years to fight, and I wasn't able to do anything in California. So I go to this show, and 10 of the other recruiters sign up, and they don't know how to fight. They just wanted to fight. It's like, I can get into a fight and not get in trouble. So we go out there, and I remember like, I didn't even have a corner man. I didn't have anybody wrap my hands. I was like, what do I need to do? Well, I end up fighting. I end up winning in a really good fashion where everyone's like, holy shit. Like, we didn't know, like, I'm like, yeah, I've been preparing for this. Go to the local fight gym in the street, and I'm like, give me another fight. Like now I'm like, I get to, man, this is cool. I get to recruit, and it actually helps you recruit when you're like fighting and doing things. Like the kids are like, dude, that's badass. So local promoter there is kind of a scumbag, but I get a chance to take a fight to Vegas. Like we need a 155er to go to Vegas and fight this kid, Robbie Ostovich, who Rachel Ostovich fought in UFC. She fought bare knuckles. Like, I mean, that's a lineage from Hawaii. So they're flying out there. So we're fighting at the Westgate, which I think now is the Hilton.
When it crosses over, even in whether this is even at an amateur level, or it sounds like it might even be semi-professional or somewhat professional, the Marine Corps doesn't have an issue with you doing that?
Nope. Sign the waiver. Like, as
long as you're able to report for duty the following day.
It was probably a little weird too, because with the Army versus the Marine Corps fight was, AVM is Sparta Combat League. So Jeff Cisneros is CEO, and he's actually sets these fights up to raise money for like, not the Wounded Warrior Foundation, but like writes the check right there to the guy that's missing the leg in the cage, and everyone's screaming America. So it's like awesome. Jeff Cisneros is an absolutely amazing dude. He did another fight to raise money for a kid with brain cancer. He would have like firefighters and police fight each other, and they would like, so you just get to go up there. And at this time, 2010 is really where things are getting like real big, like with the UFC. So he's a struggling business guy, entrepreneur, trying to set that stage. So that was like, I get to go and fight Army versus Marine Corps. It's raising money for Wounded Warriors. This is awesome. So they didn't really care as long as they understood there's a mouthpiece. Right now, there's no knees or elbows to the face. That was the only difference between pro and like that semi-pro or amateur level. Besides, it doesn't go to your record. Once you say I'm pro, there's no going back. Like, you're just going to fight guys that might have fought 50 times amateur, and now they're going to do it. So I got to go to Vegas, and they let me take leave to go to Vegas, sponsored by Corona, to go fight. So that was fun. So I ended up losing on a draw on that one, but I came back and I fought about 6 more times. And then I got to fight. The pinnacle was I fought for 2 belts up in Denver, Colorado, against Marcus Edwards, who ended up fighting Justin Gaethje right after me. And now he's a undefeated bare knuckle dude in the bare knuckle league. But he was like 10-0. He's like the guy in Denver. And I remember I was like 1-1, and nobody would fight him. And Jeff's like, the CEO was like, would you want to fight Marcus for 2 belts? And I'm like, he's like, you did a really good job your first fight. I think you could, nobody else has lasted a minute with him, but I'm like, brought me right back to my football days where I'm like, shit, yeah, I'll do it. And I think that was a big learning curve for me, where it was like, mentally, I think I already lost, you know what I mean? Where you think you're tough, but like when you're standing in front of a guy that's like, that's all he does. Then it was like, oh shit, that was my time of like, I'm playing around with people that are doing this seriously, whether it's podcasting, whether it's running a business. There's a time where it's like, I'm burning the boats. You know what I mean? And I've always been in this kind of like on the edge of what I'm going to do at anything.
Well, I would imagine too, the layers, when you first decide, hey, this is cool, this is interesting to me, I want to get into it. It's real easy to be at a layer to where you can separate yourself. Like, because you got all these people that are just kind of, I'll put in air quotes, they're saying they want to fight.
Yep.
You move up to the next level. Okay, maybe a little bit tougher. Like I said, you had to draw. So the ability starts improving. And then you go to that next level. And maybe it's not necessarily the top, but you're getting closer to the top. And all of a sudden, it's like, using the football analogy, you could have played high school football and then got stuck on an NFL stadium, in the playing in a game. And it's going to be a completely different game of football.
And what it takes, you know what I mean? Like, what are you willing to sacrifice to really be at that level is everything. Yeah, for sure. Like, even now training with guys, you've got your people that, they've got careers, they got families, they're a hobbyist. And you got guys in there that kind of want to train with the fight team and they kind of want to spar a little bit, put some headgear on. Then you guys that are full blown, like, I'm going to try MMA and we're going to beat each other down a little bit. Then you got guys that are starting to get onto the local fights and you learn from that. And there's so many emotions that kind of go. And I went from like a 200 person place to 2 weeks later to fighting in Vegas where Flavor Flav and, Kevin Randleman, who's a UFC legend, is out in the audience, you know what I mean? And he comes up to me and wants to take a picture with me and Robbie. And I'm like, who's this guy? I didn't even know who he was, but it was a huge promotion. So the feelings that you get, you're kind of like, in a moment, you're like, oh shit, this is real. Like, I'm about to jump out of this airplane kind of feeling. Like, you can train and stuff until you get there. But there's nothing. It's so satisfying to be like, I did that. And then what's next? But when you're standing in front of somebody that is serious, that is had 100 fights previous, that has a UFC coach where he's probably sleeping on someone's couch, and he doesn't have to work 13 hours recruiting people.
Right.
He doesn't have to go home and make sure dinner's cooked, and that there's a difference, right? There's an all-in moment where if you're not, that was kind of my learning point where it's like, this is probably not for me. It was just like the SEAL stuff, like, bro, you can't just fake this. It's not something you go into the teams and you're like, cool, man, you're going to have this. It's not a 9 to 5. This is your life, and you can die if you don't. You can get hurt. That was the learning curve. I fought one more time after that. And then I fought, my last one was against an Army Ranger, Nick Navarro, in front of 4,000 people at the Budweiser Event Center, which was awesome. And we got Fight of the Year. So I didn't know what the Ranger was, like the double tab Ranger. And I'm like, why does he's got 2 tattoos? And they're like, because I knew what a Ranger was, but I didn't know that there was a 75th Ranger Battalion, a regiment, right? That's SF, that's selected. And I'm like, okay, he's the tough guy. And you can watch me get beat up on YouTube. So you just got to look up Brian Scoggins and you'll see it. You know what I mean?
Each of us is on the grind. It's that early alarm, the extra rep, the drive that doesn't quit. Grind, spelt GRND, is the mindset that pushes you to go further when most people stop. Founded by a former Army Ranger, Grind Activewear is built on one simple mission: give 100% and then some more. Every piece of clothing is functional, durable, and made for people who outwork the rest. On the field, in the gym, or wherever you're building your next lane. This isn't just clothing. It's commitment woven into fabric, rooted in American grit and culture. Because when you wear Grind, you're not just wearing a logo. You're representing effort, discipline, and purpose. Check out the grndcollective.com and use the promo code TRANSITION15 for 15% off your order. You're already on the grind. Now wear it.
But it was a lot of fun. Not a lot of fun now with the feelings of like the ramifications. I think people don't understand I don't know if it's just because I'm getting older or maybe stressed because I'm also going to school and doing things now, but those things have after effects. with how fast you can speak or think sometimes, and probably why I'm a little scatterbrained at sometimes. But it was really an awesome moment. I mean, we got to raise a lot of money for a couple of, warriors that, one was a Marine that lost his arm. That was a buddy of my, one of my other recruiters. I mean, his arm's right there missing. He was there at the stadium and actually started having a seizure and had to leave and stuff, which was kind of crazy. But when you're able to like do those things for veterans at that moment is when I kind of was bit by like, hey, we can do service for those that have paid more. And that was awesome. So, and then, after that, that's when I went to the 469. So I went from that to the hardest or the most difficult from the first question. So
how long were you in Denver or Grand Junction?
So I was there for, normally recruiting is 36 months. That's where I started college too. I started going to Colorado Christian University. But I ended up extending because that's kind of how I am. I want to fix things and make sure they're good. So I extended and I ran the station for about 10 months. So I actually did 41 months. So I did 6 months more than anybody else. As an E5, running a station of E5s with 31,000 square miles, and we still were kicking everyone's ass because I was shotgun. You know what I mean? I was like, I wasn't telling you to go out there and find kids. I was like, let's go tag team kids. Kids can't run. They can't outrun us both. You know what I mean? So was successful in that. And if you ask my wife, what was her favorite time? She would say recruiting duty was her favorite time with us because just our growth, but also how we would take those weekends and get to go do different things and all the different hot springs and go see Aspen.
Well, it's common sense, you could say. Your spouse is going to like it because for the most part, it's 8 to 5. Mm-hmm. It's not deployments. It's not 6 months of you being gone in a foreign country with maybe an occasional phone call. So from a spouse perspective, recruiting duty may not be the optimal to feed your ego, so to speak, but it's going to be a lot better for your family.
Yeah. Well, I'm blessed to have her because she's smart enough to understand, like, you're not deployed. Like, yeah, you're over there and you're working, but I know where you're at. Mm-hmm. And I married the right woman because she's an only child. So she doesn't need me to like check in on her. She's got her own thing. She had her own career. She started doing her master's, got her master's while she was doing it, while I started school and everything else, and then fighting and all these things. So it's just the ability to understand on how to be efficient on whatever you're doing and to know when you have to stop and focus on those things. So like, and another thing was what's great was if we had a fight, she couldn't just go home to mom, half an hour away. We're in another state.
Right.
So it's like, we need to talk this out. And at a young age in the military spouse stuff, that's important because that's all we have. So when it's like, hey, let's talk about these things. Let me talk about how I feel about this upcoming fight or this loss. You know what I mean? Or I could have done better. It's like that strengthened our marriage a lot. And it wasn't the last time I deployed, and she knew what it was to be deployed because she started with it.
Right.
So when I went back to 469, I deployed 2 more times for the UDP program, so the unit deployment program. So it's kind of like the Marine Expeditionary Unit, but we're stationed in Okinawa, Japan. So this is much better than an Iraq deployment or Afghanistan deployment. You got teams, and now I can Skype and I can call them and stuff. But so I did a couple more of those. So
did you go from Colorado to Japan?
Colorado back to California and Pendleton, and then did 2 more pumps, fixing that squadron.
So duty station was Pendleton,
Colorado. Miramar.
Deployments were Japan.
Yep, and when I was at Pendleton, yep. And we would still do the rotational stuff. We'd come back. You'd have to go to WTI for 6 weeks. You'd get slated to do this kind of training exercise. We'd always do our workups, just like infantry guys are getting trained. Come back, it's not like, welcome home, you get to relax. It's like, okay, it's rinse and repeat. Other people are leaving. New people are coming in. We got to get them ready.
When did you get out?
I got out June 28th, which is the day of 20 years. So in 2024.
Now, was there any possibility of going 30 for you? Did you want to?
No. So I already made my name, I think, in the community. through 469. And then I went to 303 and I got a break. And that's when I had my first kid, which is a training squadron. That's in Pendleton. Then we moved to Virginia. I took an assignment at the Defense Logistics Agency doing like all wholesale supply for all armament for the Navy and the Marine Corps, which was really cool because it was kind of a new thing. It was, let's send an ordnance guy to fix our supply issues and our wholesale supply issues across the board rather than just platform, like aircraft specific, which was really awesome. And that's really where I got into the work I'm in now with No Lone Wolves and the nonprofit sector. Is that's when I started meeting the guys that were doing some of the online stuff, trying to combat suicide and isolation through like online gaming, meetups, and things like that. Then we came back and I was a wing inspector. So I went from Colorado, Camp Pendleton, California to Virginia, had my 2 kids in Virginia, came back and was a wing inspector at Miramar again. And that wing inspector means I'm going to do like out of the 40 different squadrons, I'm looking at their books and training their people and making sure they're deployable ready. And then at that point was a very soft landing to get out because I had the time to go to school, because if we're not inspecting, we're going to school. So from there, I finished my undergrad in business at Colorado Christian University, started doing the Lean Six Sigma process improvement stuff, climbed my way from yellow, green to black belt, and then started looking for a job. And that's kind of where it landed me at Northrop Grumman, where I work right now as a quality manager.
Now, did the job come find you, or did you specifically go looking for what you're doing now?
I've always been blessed. I think I've always had some, God's intervention. I'm putting the right things in front of me. A lot of people that are transitioning have a hard time, right? Because they don't know what to do. They don't know how to do the resume the right way. They don't know. They think, okay, I can do the Skill Bridge program and it's going to be easy. And, I got this safety net, and it's not the case. Big organizational wise, they're trying to do their best, but TRS and transitional readiness seminars, they'll give you, it's transactional. It's not transformational. It's not, how do I take off the uniform? How do I know who to talk to? How do I know how to use LinkedIn to do an informational interview? How do I know, those kind of things. So as I was getting out, one of my buddies, we were at BJ's Pizza, and he was telling me about this USC program. Like, oh, there's like Masters in Business for Veterans. You should check it out. And I'm like, USC? And my wife being from Orange County, she's like, oh my God, this is it. You're doing it. And literally I came home and applied. I didn't wait 2 days, but you're still thinking there's no way. It's like, I'm not going to Iraq. There's no way I'm going to Iraq. But I'm thinking we'll see what happens, because otherwise.
How much longer did you have at this point?
6 months, maybe. I'm starting to get at the point where like, oh shit, like I got to find something. At the same time, I'm trying to find a job. And as a wing inspector, and with doing some of the certifications that I did at DLA, with all the Defense Acquisition University, like the life cycle logistics, all these really good things on a resume, as long as you know how to put them on there. And then I did Vet CTAP, which is another organization that does like a 6-week, 2 times a week for like 2 hours each day. So it's extensive to teach you how to do your LinkedIn, how to do your resume. They do elevator pitches. They do mock interviews. So anybody that's interested, Vet CTAP, if you're about to get out within 6 months, it is a absolute must.
Now, did you find this on your own, or did somebody say, hey, you need to go do that?
It's one of those things you see and someone's like, this is a great way of going in. Same thing as like, hey, go into Villanova and get your 6-week Greenbelt course. Pay the money, because these organizations are looking for people that can do this. They're the ones that they're looking for your project management. You're looking for those things. But Vet CTAP, as a gunny, as an E7, I was the lowest ranking person in that course. And they only have like 15 to 20 spots. So, and they only help people that are getting out within that 6 months. So if you're like a year out, they don't really want to help you. They want the people that are really needing it.
But at the same token, do you need to have an idea of what you want to do when you get out to maximize the training, or is it just?
Nope. They have about 30 HR professionals come out that are all volunteering, that work at, all these different organizations. And one was Northrop. So here I'm thinking about Northrop, and I'm applying for Northrop, and I see this guy, and he tells me who he is. Then he's talking about USC, that he's a doctorate grad from Rossier, which I'm going to now. So I'm like, okay, I applied for this USC thing. He's at Northrop. I have an interview at Northrop coming up because I just started applying for a lot of the big sector, defense companies, right? And then I'm also getting a chance to be able to really tailor my LinkedIn and my resume, which is absolutely a must. And then you think you know how to do it, but they get into the details of what does your graphics behind you look like? Does it even make sense to what you're talking about to, every bullet point on your resume and how that looks at the eye and how it draws it in, and word association using ChatGPT, all these things. Also finding the flower, of petals of what do you want? How much responsibility do you want? How much pay do you want? Do you really want that much responsibility? Because most people, they get out and they think they want it, but they go, shit, they don't want that much. But they go over all of that with you. And I think if it wasn't for that vet CTAP, I wouldn't have found the guy that worked for Northrop that gave me all of their HR questions, like the STAR method, like situation, task, action, results, how to specifically, when they ask you these questions, how to answer these questions. You know what I mean? And I got all that through vet CTAP.
There have been multiple guests now who, it's very easy to throw out the concept. You need to network. You need to network. You need to network. But I've had multiple guests now, and what's really important with the networking is you never know who you're going to meet. But the one thing you can guarantee yourself is you're not going to meet anybody if you're not networking. Mm-hmm. But I've had guests who have, I was going from A to B, and I went on LinkedIn and I found somebody who was at B. And what I mean by not even at a company, I'm just talking about location. I was moving, got out of the Navy, got out of San Diego. He was going back home to Texas. Got on LinkedIn, found somebody who was in the same geographic area. Hey, I'm a vet, getting out. Started with a phone call. Then that started with hey, let's meet for a cup of coffee. And it's just those little things. But you have to put yourself in the position to meet those people. You've got to take the effort and the initiative to reach out. They're not going to come and look for you per se.
Yep.
But if you reach out to them and you're genuine, they're more than likely 99.9% of the time going to do what they can to help you.
Yeah, it's like the saying, luck is preparedness and opportunity, right? But if you're not putting in the work and you're not making yourself out there, and some people will do it for a little while, and I think they get demoralized. Mm-hmm. Oh, he didn't call me back. Well, how many times did you call him? He's busy.
You got to play the long game.
He has a podcast. He's got other work that he needs to do. He's got a family. He's got things. We're all like that. And a lot of us want to help each other, but you also have to understand how to ask. Take the time to go, what do I want? Because most of the time, everyone's asking, but they don't even know what they want. You know what I mean? It's like, I want you to be successful so you can take me with you. What do you want? I don't know. What do you want to do for me? Let's say I'm running my own business. Well, what do you want to do? I don't know. I want to be a part of this mission. Okay, cool, man. What do I do with you? So I think that's the most important thing is that the transition. So I've really set myself up in a weird way where it's like, I am pushing myself to do so many different things during this weird transition time, to experience as much as I can the feelings of what it means to transition out of the service. No Lone Wolves that we started a year before I got out was partially for that reason, was how do we help veterans transition and learn some of the things that I'm learning right now, which seems like luck, but it was preparedness and opportunity. Because vet CTAP can only take so many people. So we need to be able to share this with everybody. No different than, the Masters in Business for veterans, what they're doing at USC. Now you've got this 10-month master's program that's allowing you to not only navigate an MBA to a very almost Ivy League status to that cohort of executive people and the people that you can network to, but at the same time, do it in a way where you're with like-minded veterans. I mean, that's like, you're doing therapy, you're doing preparedness, you're setting up everything. And that really helped me. But I was like, man, I am so blessed to not only have, like I said, God's been putting these things in front of me. And I'm like, well, I need to give back just as much. And not everybody gets that opportunity. Not everybody gets out at 20 years and that's a Navy SEAL or has, as a Green Beret that has some of the accolades or put in the work to get to that next level. And remember, we were talking about the analogy of fighting. There's levels, and each level you have to work harder. But at the same time, you have to look back and say, who can I give back to? The analogy, I love using analogies, but also understand every mountain that you climb, there's always another mountain. And then the higher you get, the more you're like, oh, the farther I can fall. But as long as you bring somebody with you, it's almost like a carabiner or you're not free climbing anymore. And for me now, I think my focus on a lot of it is starting to pitch from what am I able to accomplish to how can I help other people accomplish? And that's all I care about now. So I got this lessons. I know this knowledge, but these guys are getting out every second and not getting this knowledge.
Well, and there's other components to it in the sense that you brought up special operations, special operators, SEALs, Marsoc, Special Forces guys, Green Berets. What they do is amazing shit. What's their skill set for the civilian world? So you do 20 years as a Green Beret. There aren't a lot of jobs that skill set immediately transitions to, unless you're talking about being a contractor, that type stuff. On the flip side, you bring a solid skill set. You had virtually 20 years around aviation. Mm-hmm. So it's going to make you more marketable within an environment that deals with that. But I've also had a guest who was a pilot in the Navy for a bunch of years. And he really struggled. He thought it would be real easy just to slide out of the Navy and go fly, for a major airline. Mm-hmm. And it took some work. And it wasn't until somebody happened to mention to him, hey, there's this conference that goes on multiple times a year. You need to be there. And that was because he sent out the resumes and everything. Yep. And you're just one of a number. You got to get in front of that right person. I really love the saying when they say, we've heard it, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Mm-hmm. But it's more, it gets more granular than that. It's who knows you.
Yes.
And so by being able to put yourself in a position, taking the time out of your life to go to the USC program, yeah, you're getting a degree from it, but you're getting so much more by being face to face with people who could potentially move your career forward.
I think that's spot on. It's not just look at all the great things I've done or put it on a resume, because a resume is a piece of paper, but they have these career fairs and SD Max and these things that are going, you have to go out there and meet people. And I, again, got lucky, right time, right place, was able to get an interview with Northrop Grumman, they had a problem, much like 469. They needed some things fixed, and I showcased my resume that I was a fixer. And the guy hired me and another Marine, Sergeant Major, and because the dude was old school, and he looked at us and he said, if you don't fix this shit, you're out of here. You know what I mean? And I was like, got it. That's what I do. And when I met Josh, a buddy that I work with, it took him 9 months to get that job. And I just walked in. I literally wasn't even out of the Marine Corps. I had my retirement party. I was still on terminal leave. On Friday, I walked into Northrop Grumman. On Monday, still in, no breaks. Walked in 15 days later, started my master's, still doing things. And now I'm in my doctorate where I'm running. But I have to run because my sense of purpose now is, how do I help others follow suit? The farther I climb, the more I can pull up. And since then, I put in 79 referrals, but I've noticed they didn't get jobs, but I've put in their resumes, got about 4, almost 5. We're working on the 5th. But there's a lot of those tweaks that have to happen, but it still comes out to, do I know the hiring manager? Because they've got somebody they're going to pull up. They already got, if they got an opening spot,
they pretty much know
family, friends. And the problem now is, great, you can be a Navy pilot and you could be great, but you also got to look at, you're starting again. You're not going to get out. I mean, it's very rare that you're going to look at, a high 6-figure job, 150,000 or more right away. Cool, you got USC, you're an engineer, you got these things. You think you're going to get into like the level 2, level 3 or director position easy. It's not going to be the case. They're not going to give out a $200,000 salary to somebody they don't know over somebody that they knew for the last 10 years that have been to 4 different places that know what the job entails. Green Berets, very adaptable, very good to be, strategy and business and those things. But if you don't want to do any of that stuff that really shines your skill sets, now you're looking at going, oh man, how do I pivot? But everything boils down to, what do you want? That's it. You know what you want. You can come up with a plan, but most of these veterans, they're not sure what they want.
Well, the other factor that you have to weigh out is you got to go where the work is. You can EAS out of Pendleton, but if you want to go live in Des Moines, Iowa, there may not be the jobs that you want to do available there. So that's the trade-off.
100%.
You can't sit there and go, oh, there's no work for me. Well, where do you want to work at?
100%. That happened to me. We wanted to go move to Prescott, Arizona with my in-laws. And I'm like, I just got my Lean Six Sigma black belt. I've done all these process improvements, I've got the skill sets to go work for Ruger. I really want to go like shoot and do those cool things, like hit up Ruger. They offered me an $18 an hour job working on the line. I'm like, I wanted the process improvement stuff, but that's like very minimal chances of getting those. It's the right time, the right place. They can't help me if I'm not getting out for a while. So you do have to look at, that's that flower thing I was talking about from Vet CTAP, where they go, we need to really start with what you want. Those petals are different things. And you want to find your perfect flower, and it takes a lot of inner work to realize, because you're still trying to transition. You're still trying to worry about what your family wants to go to, because their in-laws are, their parents are getting older. Where do I raise a family, and what does the school look like? You know what I mean? It's very, and it's hard for me because I didn't have as much of a struggle to relate to them, but I feel what they're feeling, because every one of them I'm trying to help. Like, I just had a call today with another veteran that's looking at another program. I'm always willing to answer the call or take time. But for the veterans that are reaching out there and they're trying to do these coffee talks with people, you need to go out to the Veteran Beer Club. Doesn't mean you need to go drink beer. That has nothing to do with it. And I think a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I'm going to go have a beer with vets. No, you need to be out there talking to people. Who do you know? What are you doing? How am I helping those communities? If you don't go out to the community, you're not going to be a part of the community. That's just bottom line. And I know a lot of veterans feel they're not a part of this community, but they need to be. That isolation needs to be pulled away. Because if you don't save yourself, you're not going to be able to save anybody else. If you don't make the climb, you're not going to be able to help pull anybody else up. And then every time you do get to that next level, what can I do? How can I help them make that next step? Or tell them the same thing. Like, you're going to have struggles. You're going to feel like, especially like a lot of them, like, oh shit, I've been trying for 2 months. These guys are not even calling me back. They're assholes. They don't care. Well, have you made an Excel spreadsheet? Have you talked to and put every person's number, name, and systematically put like corkboard ropes on things, so when you meet somebody and, oh, you're friends with them too, and you can bring that up? I mean, there's a couple books that'll help you, how to win friends and influence people.
Well, there's a level of, call it playing the game. You've got to put your ego in check. You've got to be the one to do the follow-up. You've got to be the one to send that email randomly. You've got to be the one to, hey, you want to grab a cup of coffee? You're trying to get into their world.
Yep.
So you've got to go to where they're at. And I think a lot of people, especially those that come from our communities, we bring so much ego, which is rightfully earned from everything that we've done in our careers. But you gotta tamper that down a little bit. And sometimes it might just be, man, he hasn't sent me an email back. Don't wait for him.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, and it might literally be, hey, Bob, how's your day going?
Mm-hmm.
Happy New Year. Just some bullshit message, but it brings you back up to the top of his memory list. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And you've got to do those little things.
And it might not even be for you, but your buddy.
True.
Because remember, some of those roadblocks are blessings. Go back to, I could have joined at 18 years old. Did my brother save me? What would have happened if I did join when I was 18? Would I be here today?
Right.
Those things are also need to be checked. For me, I still want to climb. I got to check myself too, because I'm becoming impatient for even my next step level where I'm at now. Yeah, I've done all these things for you. I've done all these great things. That doesn't mean I need to get a breakfast held in my honor. Who am I? Everybody's doing things too. So I think it's important to understand those reality checks. And even talking about this is like healing for me, like full circle, like, yeah, maybe I need to check my ego. I got to, we all wear these masks and these uniforms. It's kind of like our clothes that make us feel good within those situations, but sometimes we have to wash them. Those clothes, sometimes they're not even used anymore. That uniform, as good as it looked and all that stuff, but that's not...
Marine Corps uniform doesn't look good at all.
That's not it anymore. It depends on, which one. They haven't changed it for a long time. But they're so uncomfortable. The blues is just like, man. But it's the same thing. It's like, how do you dress? How do you present? Who are you talking to? Are you doing things for you? Because those people that reach that level, they know. They've seen it 100 times. They probably helped 100 people. But if you're doing it for you all the time, like you said, and it's not, hey Bob, how you doing? What can I do for you? I heard your son needs some help. Let me help your son out. I heard he's joining the military and maybe I can mentor him. Those things are all the time. What are you providing? If you provide the service, the service is the healing. Watching your podcast, that's it. The transition is, how do I help others? I'm no lone wolves, and what I'm trying to do is so selfish because it's not necessarily for others, it's for me. I'm fixing myself to be able to provide service. That's what I need to do, because I don't want to fall down that path, right? I have a reason to get up in the morning, and I think the best feeling ever is to make others more successful, right? I had one of my friends say, a good tree doesn't eat its own fruit. It's not about you. It's about what the fruit you bear and how you can help others. And I'll tell you right now that one of the corporals from 469, I helped him navigate some schools in NDI, and now he's got his own company in Australia, and they're doing things that are amazing. And through him, I was able to help another one to go through PASS. And so you start to build these like networks, and it's not about you. I'm not making millions of dollars. He is, but it's not about me. You know what I mean? And sometimes you got to check yourself, because we're all on different paths.
Right. You've mentioned it now several times. Give the listeners a broader understanding of No Lone Wolves. What is it about? What do you do? What's your mission set? Is it a nonprofit?
Yes. So we are a nonprofit. So 501c3 nonprofit. We started in 2023. Through COVID, when I was in Virginia, and I was telling you earlier, I kind of got into another group to try to remove isolation, veterans isolation, and combat suicide through online gaming, because everybody started getting kind of online at that point. So we would have Salty Sailor talks, and we'd have like these veteran meetups, and we'd talk about resiliency, and we'd cry. You got a bunch of 20 nerds on Discord playing video games and crying about their problems and shit, right? So it's kind of funny, but we did do some meetups, but so I served with them for a while, and then I kind of separated because I wasn't able to see what they're doing with financials and plans. And then as I'm learning more about business, I'm like, so I pivoted and I said, you know what? It was kind of that couch moment, like that, am I all in or am I not? So I spent the last $5,000 of my money to kind of start getting the lawyers and getting the stuff and start building things up. And one of the guys that I served with on my last team, Ty Fletcher, he's my VP. I was like, hey man, are you interested, in starting something? He's like, let's do it. And then he came up with the name from his native roots of like no lone wolves, of like the lone wolf. The lone wolf can't bring down game, can't hunt by itself. If it gets injured, it's going to die. And we believe that we're supposed to be this lone wolf and get strong. And although that's true, we can only survive for so long. And we can't do as much. So that whole mentality, that was kind of the name. And our biggest mission statement was not only to help veterans come out of isolation and fight suicide, but also some of these other nonprofits to kind of start to bring in that neural network of thought idea, because you can't, even the nonprofits are kind of lone wolves in themselves. And, you start to talk to people in the San Diego area that's in the nonprofit sector, especially with veterans. Oh, it's another nonprofit. Oh, it's another equine therapy. It's another this. Well, it's not easy. So that's kind of where the MBA comes in, and my doctorate studies now is to really to do that dissertation work, to really start figuring that out and plant better foundations here in the community. It's the best place to do it. Miramar, Pendleton, the things that I've experienced in the last just year alone, if I can rinse and repeat that to even 50% yield, that's huge, really big. So we started that. We do some online gaming stuff. I got a couple of other guys on my board that are veterans. And then we started doing coffee talks. We started figuring out, okay, how do we really get into the community and help people? And then in MBV program at USC, I met Joe Stabley, who introduced me to, those gates to healing, and Gina and some of the people that work in there to do horse equine therapy here in the Temecula area. And I went over there and I met them, and I'm like, I've been waiting for some platform in order to really bring that healing there, because cool, we can play games and video games and we can do stuff, and that's cool. But what is the real problem area right now is those veterans getting the mental health services that they need. And it wasn't apparent really until, we're coming up on the year anniversary of my buddy Cody Anderson that I talked about before. Is the whole reason, I extended for my third deployment. He took his life here in the Temecula area, January 27th, because of, the VA system and working through that stuff. And I ended up taking his own life at his house. And I get the call from my buddy when I'm at school. And here I already had a nonprofit. I'm moving in the area. I hit him up and I was like, hey man, I'm coming in. We're moving to Marietta. We got to catch up. We haven't seen each other for a while, and he's already been out for a number of years battling with his own demons. And it was like, everything was good, but then all of a sudden it's not. And then all of a sudden I get that call. And now I'm like, that was a smack in the face where I'm like, I'm moving in his area. He's my buddy, and I'm running a nonprofit that's trying to fight suicide. And that just even kind of made it even more apparent, like what we need to do in this area of Temecula and with Gates, and that partnership that we are building now of really trying to bring some kind of foundational program for veterans to transition and get out, but also get outside to get that therapy, because a lot of people don't need maybe full therapy, but they need the community. They need to get out of the isolation so that they don't feel alone, so that they can get a good job, so that they can understand how to do their resume. Or if they just want to blow shit up on Saturday night on video games, that's fine too. You know what I mean? So
how was your transition?
Oh man, it's still happening. Like I said, I've been lucky. but it hasn't been easy. I mean, every day it's like run, you know. Now I did the MBV thing. It was awesome. Then I jumped right into a doctorate program for organizational change leadership, which is great, but it's another level in that, you know, on top of trying to run a nonprofit, to partner with another one, to be a parent of a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old, to have a good marriage, to try to do organizational change at Northrop, which I got assigned to in some sense by the VP, and trying to help those and bring other people on board and worrying about other people. Sometimes it is hard. But it is also, I think that is the transition. It is the emergence, right? We don't say I'm a Marine and then I get out and I'm not a Marine. It's not a transformation. It's an evolution or an emergence of something else. Like, I think there's a big stereotype where you have to be like, oh, I was a pilot and now I got to go do it. No, you're still who you were. You've always been that person, but you just decided to wear one of those masks, I think, longer than the other ones. And some of those masks you can just put away, and that's okay. But you still need to decide what mask you're going to wear and which one is getting too much attention, whether it is your at home, right, being a father or whatever it is. But I think if my biggest thing, like my transition has been good because of the service of others in their transition. I don't know if that's kind of a weird way of looking at it, but it's like I'm almost mentoring myself in a sense, right? My mission, I think, moving forward with No Lone Wolves is to build something that is a pack, is a tribe that can hunt those things that people can feel like they can come and be a part of. And it's not my nonprofit. If everybody can come in here and start their own wolf pack and start their own little tribe, that's everything. Because we're not going to solve it with the VA. We're not going to solve it with nonprofits that raise millions of dollars. The money for me doesn't matter. I don't need money to do what I'm doing. I can go out there and spend my time. But if I can get everybody to do that same thing, the money doesn't matter. It's being there for that person, because it is that other person on the other side. Oh, he doesn't want to return my call. I guess I am alone. That's it.
Well, I think that's the important aspect of, we can step away from these careers. We can get lost in our lives, whether everything's going on the surface, going great. You got that job lined up, moving forward, or you're struggling to find the next spot, the next landing space. But it is that thing, like you said, it's, okay, I'm out, but I can't stop looking back because there's somebody coming out behind me. And maybe even just my 1 or 2 steps ahead of them where I've hit some hiccups, if I can be a voice of reason for them, like, hey, don't make that same mistake. Mm-hmm. I got goosebumps. You're paying back in a way that, like you said, you can't get a measure. What I say by a measurable value, it's not something that you could say, hey, here's what I did, but it feeds you inside and you're doing something for the person coming behind you.
Yeah, it's that analogy of climbing that rock. You're solo climb, you're free climbing it, but if you can tell the other person, that's a good handhold, and you bring them up, that's like a care. That is the, you couldn't have said it perfect, because it is, if we can get every generation or every person that knows that, we're only a couple of separations of people away. But it's just like that organizational dysfunction where little things get missed. Those interactions between me and you get missed or lost. There's a gap. You might have 50 of those people, and if they keep going away, that person's solo. I mean, that person's gone. So you got to think about who in your Rolodex that you mentored at some point that you can just call and say, hey man, just wanted to say goodnight. You're like, it's 5:00 in the afternoon. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Goodnight. I just thought you would go to bed early because I was such a sissy or whatever, right? Or something. I don't know. But when you call, you need to do those things. What did you learn, and how can you help somebody else? people in the service are not going to ask. Right? And that was what you alluded to earlier, is like, we need to ask. You need to bother as many people as you can and have a list of everybody you can talk to and everybody you talk to on LinkedIn. It doesn't mean waste their time. It doesn't mean think that they're going to give you 45 minutes of a coffee talk. Respect their 10, 15 minutes. Always come up with something like a thank you gift or something. Bring value to it, and trust me, they will help you. People want to help. People want to mentor others, and they want to pull other people. Sometimes people don't know how to do that. So you have to help them, or you got to be the person to help as many as you can.
What's on your long-term vision board?
So my long-term vision board is to really explore more in depth what it is to transition as my dissertation, and look at what those gaps are and see if I can plug them. I would love to be able to financially set up the areas here that we have for that programs and really build something that I can bring even other, because a lot of vets want to do this, that's their skill set. Those ones that you were talking about, that Green Beret, that pilot, that so-and-so, build their future so that they can do that, and they can be the spark that heals this area, that heals our generation from 20 years of combat. Set up not transactional TRS systems, but transformational things that are longer, that explore what it is to now move on from military service to something other, whatever that may be. I know there's a lot of other areas that do that. Possibly to write one of these things, the books. I have a title. It's From Dumbass to Doctor. Not another Navy SEAL book, maybe something like that, just to poke at some of my Navy SEAL buddies, or even be funny there. But, you know, having a chance to be able to do a podcast like this to talk about who I was allows me to not try to explain that in a book, but maybe focus on what really matters and be relevant to those people. And just understand that I need to take time to think about the things that I've accomplished, but also enjoy those things, because we're running the race and we're not even like paying attention to, you know, the surroundings or who we're taking with us. So yeah, my big goal is finish school, bring No Lone Wolves as more of a name here in this community, so everybody comes out and they have a place that they can feel comfortable, and they have a pack and they belong. So,
well, as we bring it into the finish line, any last pieces of advice that you've covered a lot, but any last piece that you want to make sure gets out there?
Yeah. You're not alone. That's it.
I appreciate it. I appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing your story, and I wish you all the best going forward.
Thank you for having me.
As always, thank you for listening or watching the episode. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out on social media or send me an email. The links are all in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you. Also, if you're not already, please follow the podcast on whatever platform you get your podcasts. You can also subscribe on YouTube. And if you would, please leave me a rating. Ratings do two things. You can tell me what I need to fix or improve, and the more ratings also gets the podcast recommended to more people. Another ask, please share the podcast with anyone you think could benefit from and enjoy it. And last, don't forget, sign up for the newsletter.